Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar. And I've had such good replies and feedback from Happy Home, a Lubavitcher Rebbe on marital harmony, that I decided to give you, the viewers, a few more tidbits of what the Rebbe's advice is and how to have a happy home. And the first thing is the practical advice. So let's hear what the Rebbe has to say, and I'll explain it a little bit. Every Sunday, the Rebbe would give out dollar bills for the purpose of charity as a form of a blessing. Now, the Rebbe stopped doing this in 1992 because he suffered a stroke. We should know from it. He passed away almost exactly 2 years later afterwards. But beforehand, before 1992, for a good 3-4 years, he couldn't have an audience to Rebbe, thousands of people. How many people can you see? So they passed by his office. He'd give a dollar bill. Most times he would just say, give them a blessing, bless, in Hebrew I'll translate it, blessing and success. But some people had, oh, Rebbe, a fast question. And those were some beautiful answers, and that's what we're going to get. A man who passed before the Rebbe on one such occasion asked about the auspicious practice of folding the prayer shawl immediately at the end of Shabbos, because on the Sabbath, well, every day you wear a prayer shawl, but you shouldn't really fold it up to prepare for the next day on the Sabbath. So you do it right after the Sabbath ends, like Saturday night, as a positive influence on domestic harmony. So a lot of things we do, they're spiritual. Obviously, what does folding up your prayer shawl have to do with domestic harmony? But it does say that kind of idea. So the person asked that to the Rebbe. The Rebbe answered, an auspicious practice for peace between husband and wife at the end of Shabbos is for one to fold up your shirt sleeves and help your wife. So that's a beautiful one-liner for the Rebbe, because a lot of people, maybe in these spiritual homes, they're into their prayers, but just to help your wife is one of the best. Just fold up your sleeve. That's a beautiful one-liner. And like I say, things from the Rebbe is always beautiful advice. Now, the way to treat difficulties in the relationship between a married couple when it is complicated with several problems, from simple to complex. Beginning with simple steps, the couple will be able to deal with the problems that seem to be easier to resolve. When they discuss the problems in a pleasant manner, without demanding major changes from one another, and without dwelling on the question of who is right, a couple can make a good start towards gradual improvement in their relationship until it is completely corrected. This is especially the case if both sides act with goodwill to begin making minor adjustments in order to engender a suitable atmosphere. The situation is not that bad. At times, a couple may think that their situation is gloomy and uniquely without hope. It is vital to be aware that today domestic issues are, unfortunately, not uncommon, and many homes manage to deal with similar problems and to resolve them with success. Furthermore, it is important to know that the situation is not as bad as it looks. With a little goodwill, the couple will certainly succeed in their efforts to live in peace. Harmony between a husband and a wife is the intermediate, the vessel that the couple makes for God to fill with abundant blessings and success in good health, livelihood, and joy from children. Sometimes it seems, and perhaps accurately so, that a husband or wife should possess a few more positive character traits. However, it is important to remind ourselves that this match was preordained by God. Furthermore, it is fact that until the final redemption with the coming of the Mashiach, the Messiah, there could be no such thing as human without flaws. Every person has some kind of defect, and just as we don't like pointing out our own personal shortcomings, so too we do not need to emphasize and enlarge the faults of others. Just as a person recognizes his own faults and understands that the way to overcoming them is not through hurting himself, rather he will search for solutions that avoid personal grief. So too, and even more so, must be the case in the relationship between a husband and wife. This is particularly evident when a person considers the fact that the spouse is the father or mother of their children. If a man or woman notices a problem with their spouse's behavior, he or she can and must correct this only through pleasant language and positive action. A comment must be conveyed peacefully and with respect, delicately and carefully. Under no circumstances should harsh language or anger be used, even when the intention is only to deter. We all have positive and negative character traits. A young person usually tries to work on him or herself. With age, there is less desire to change, and it is also more difficult to do so. If a married partner frequently points out shortcomings to an older spouse concerning things that he or she is unable to control, it will upset him or her without benefit. On the other hand, if he or she sees that the partner ignores his or her failings and does not pick on him or her, even if he or she did so up until now, the couple's relationship will improve, and within a short time, their overall domestic harmony will benefit. We must be careful never to be drawn into unnecessary disagreements and fights. If we find ourselves beginning to argue, or even if we are after a dispute, the best advice is to change the subject to a neutral and quiet manner. Similarly, in an outright fight, even if it is already broken out, it is important to do everything possible not to let it flare up, instead of making of it small change. Even after the flames have cooled down, there is no need and is not worthwhile reopening the issues of who is to blame, who started it. It is always worthwhile to avoid focusing on fights, anger, and old grudges. Problems in family relationships often begin with an inappropriate expression, harsh words, or so far. There is no need to elaborate or explain how such behavior is not fitting to a Jewish home. It is also clear that one should not answer back in the same vein. Even those who have become accustomed to such speech will come to realize that without a large amount of effort, it is possible to overcome this habit. This is actually much easier than it first appears, especially since the positive results are soon evident in a tangible way. When good and sympathetic words are exchanged between a couple, their home is quickly transformed into a dwelling of true peace. In conflicts, disagreements, or fights between people in general, and spouses in particular, almost never is one side 100% right and the other side 100% wrong. Typically, each side is right to a certain percent and guilty to a certain extent, even if the percentages are not equal. If the couple can remember this, it will be easier for them to stabilize their domestic harmony and to make allowances one for the other. Also, for professionals, rabbis, and friends who wish to mediate, it is easier to reconcile the parties when they remember this true general principle. When one spouse notices that the other is in a bad mood, is itching for a fight, the best thing is to ignore this, not getting upset and not answering back. When the side that was looking to fight sees that the other is not interested and that his or her words have no emotional impact, his or her appetite for argument will weaken until it completely disappears. Many problems between couples are related to the field of mental health. This is not the place to elaborate upon the nature of these kinds of problems or how they can be solved by a psychologist or a psychiatrist. What is important to know regarding the verse from Shmos, which is the book of Exodus, and shall cause him to be thoroughly healed. Our sages explained in the Talmud that the Torah gave permission, meaning the ability for doctors to heal. In other words, according to the Torah, when facing a health issue, we must contact a doctor and hope that, with God's help, there will be a complete recovery. In some cases, a housewife or a husband's lack of occupation may also cause certain problems. Under such circumstances, it may be helpful if the unemployed spouse finds even a part-time job, either paid or voluntary, such as working community assistance, helping the needy, or something as alike. Such work prevents a person from sinking into self-pity by channeling his energy into a positive direction. What is more, the work assists first and foremost a person who gives and devotes himself to the welfare of others. At times, the partners think that it will be very difficult to attain peace and stabilize their relationship. In fact, if one party will only take the initiative towards compromise, the two will quickly find that it is actually easy to make peace. The problem is that at times neither person is willing to take that first crucial step. It appears that such initiative might hurt his or her dignity. This issue becomes more pronounced when the conflict arises from a misconception that the other person, for absolutely no reason, relates to his or her person in an improper manner. If such is the case, why should he or she make the first move? When one takes the initiative towards compromise, he or she immediately understands that this is the right thing. Such a small step usually reveals that the lack of caring was imaginary, enabling the couple to more readily make peace. The results of this simple step are positive and immediate. Parents, brothers, sisters, and other relatives should not intervene in the relationship between husband and wife. This may be the task of friends, rabbis, counselors, but not family. Generally speaking, when family members intervene, the situation is only exasperated and peace is not restored. Particularly, parents who really want the best for their children should not intervene. Such interference can lead to divorce. It is important to remember that this is a matter of vital importance for the parents themselves and not just for their children. Even if the parents of the other side do intervene, there is no need to get involved. When the intervening parents see that the other side does not interfere, they will stop interfering as well. From the above mentioned, it is understood that married children generally need not live in proximity to their parents. This is not an iron rule. It depends on the character of the family, if it is their nature to intervene or not, as well as other factors. Rather, they should live peacefully by themselves. Lack of dependence on parents also serves to strengthen the connection between a new couple. Now, a man and a spouse caught in a state of tension, anger, and continuous fighting, and who find that any attempt to solve the issue between themselves causes anger and mutual accusations, will find it difficult to sort out their problems on their own. One of the best ways to solve the problem is to consult with mutual friends. A bystander may clarify a difficult situation since he is not emotionally involved and his view is objective. Therefore, much easier for friends to find ways to restore family harmony. Experience shows that in most cases, true friends do indeed help. In some cases, it is productive for the husband or wife to ask of friends to speak to the other party in order to improve the relationship. Generally speaking, in such a case, the other spouse should not know who approached the friends for assistance. When adult children notice marital problems, they may also influence their parents to improve their relationship. Clearly, however, this must be done with pleasant and respectful words. In order to connect two hard objects, we use a glue that is soft and supple. If the couple has a hard nature and is not willing to be flexible, their situation is likely to be complex. In such a case, good friends should provide them with the glue by explaining to each separately that goodwill, a little flexibility, and willingness to compromise will not harm self-respect, but over the course of time will certainly enable them to enjoy the fruits of peace. In general, the man should give in to his wife, particularly when it comes to domestic matters. He should yield and not pressure her to agree to things that she did not want to do beforehand. Since the husband is following a commandment and instruction of the sages, when he yields to his wife, he should do this with joy. In most cases, when a woman sees that her husband has true and serious intentions regarding domestic harmony and he is ready to make concessions, she will be pacified. Now, the place of residence should be in accordance with the wishes of the wife. As it is said, the woman is the home. She is the home more of the time. Her relationship with friends is more important to her, and she is more sensitive to her immediate environment. Of course, a husband should also have a say in the matter, but he should give greater weight to her standpoint. Refreshing and changing the usual routine and getting out of the daily grind can aid in the stability of a marital relationship and in many cases repair domestic harmony. For this reason, going on vacation together should strengthen the relationship between husband and wife and envelope them in peace. Many times a trip or vacation easily and joyously solves problems without distress. For those visiting the Holy Land of Israel, the experience is spiritually uplifting and has an unexplainable positive influence on domestic peace. The Medrash, the homiletic parts of the Torah, says that Aaron, the high priest, was characterized as loving and pursuing peace. Therefore, after his death, the Torah says, quote, "And they cried for him all of the house of Israel," a description that implies both the men and the women. In contrast, upon Moses' death, it says only, quote again, "And they cried for him the children of Israel," implying the men alone. How did Aaron bring peace between two friends or between a man and wife? Well, the Midrash relates that when Aaron would see two people, friends, or a couple quarreling, he would go to each separately and say, "See how your friends feel regrets and punishes himself for the fact that he sinned against you. He asked me to come and request that you forgive him." As a result, when the two would meet, they would make peace with joy and a full heart. We can expand the methods of Aaron the high priest and use it in many instances when domestic harmony needs to be improved. Rabbis, friends, or counselors need to emphasize the virtues of the spouse and his or her unique character traits. And every Jew has unique strong points. And set above, such a conversation should be conducted with each party separately. Getting back to Aaron, you might object, well, it is true that his system achieved positive results, and many Jews have used it since. He did not tell the truth. Our sages taught that sometimes it is virtuous to change the truth to make peace, learning this from the Torah. When the angels told our forefather Abraham that Sarah would bear a son, Sarah laughed and said, "After I am waxed old, shall I have youthful skin, and my husband is old," like the old man? However, when God spoke to Abraham, he changed her words and said, "Why did Sarah laugh, saying, 'Shall I truly give birth, and I have become old?'" Rashi explains that God attributes Sarah's disbelief to her own advanced age in order to prevent Abraham from feeling that she blames him for his inability to have children. This precedent teaches that it is permissible and sometimes even required to alter facts in order to preserve or bring peace. Over the course of generations, the Jewish custom has been for husband and wife to approach a rabbi when a conflict develops between them. A rabbi experienced with mediation can certainly help in accordance with his knowledge of the Torah, of which it is said all of its ways are peace. Due to the complexity of human nature, it is difficult for two people between whom disagreement reigns to sort out their issues without becoming emotional. They are likely to be drawn into a heated debate and to say things that they would not normally say. When they turn to a rabbi and weigh their difficulties together with him, each side will express their position in a calm way. The rabbi listens to the accusations and justifications from both sides, one after the other, this being an essential criteria in clarifying the truth. Clearly, it is also possible for each to meet separately with the rabbi in advance if they feel more comfortable in doing so. With the rabbi's experience and the divine assistance, there is strong hope that, in fact, the issues will be straightened out. When visiting the rabbi, it is vitally important that both parties have a desire to make peace between them, and there is nothing that stands against true will. The couple should also possess the willingness to accept and comply with the teachings of our Torah, the Torah of life. A difficult economic situation almost always affects the peace and harmony in a home. It is human nature for economic pressure to have a much greater effect upon a person's relationship with the people who are closest to him than upon his dealing with strangers. In such a case, it is necessary to take care to avoid exasperating the situation with harsh and inconsiderate words. If it already uttered, such words should be completely ignored. This is actually much easier than it is first appears, since the positive impacts of restraint are seen after very little time. Of course, when the financial situation improves, the general mood of the couple will also get better and both partners will become less sensitive. When contemplating God's past acts of kindness, a person is invested with a sense of security and certainty that he will assist in the future and that this difficult situation will turn around. With this, one reaches the conclusion that the difficult times were few, insignificant, and passing. Domestic peace, including a healthy relationship between a husband and wife, is one of the more notable auspicious practices for making a good living. According to the Torah, we must make an effort to be occupied with the natural means upon which our sustenance superficially depends. It follows that it is even more important to make an effort in spiritual matters that the Torah tells us are also crucial to our livelihood. Our sages say God did not find any other vessel to contain blessing for Israel other than peace. Jewish sources frequently compare a woman to a house, and housewife in Hebrew can be translated as the essence of the house. One Talmudic sage even said, "I never called my wife, rather my home." Our sages taught a man should always be careful of his wife's honor, since no blessing is found in a man's home except that which is for his wife. In other places, the sages instructed their students, honor your wives in order to become rich. This raises the question, if everything depends on the wife, how can the husband obligate himself to financially supporting her? In the Ksuva, which is the marriage document that is given from the husband to the wife right at the marriage ceremony, that he signs, it says, quote, "And I will honor and feed and support you." In Jewish mysticism and Hasidic teachings, it is explained that both of these facets are true. While the main effort to bring down divine blessing is dependent upon the masculine aspect, these blessings may remain in a spiritual form and not manifest itself in physical livelihood. In order to draw down the lofty godly kindness and mercy and transform it into the physical reality that God literally gives bread to all flesh, we need the merit of the woman or the feminine aspect. In many cases, one spouse is more stringent about his or her observance of the Torah commandments. This could be due to his or her previous background, home, environment, education, and so forth. Even if the partners were married with understanding and knowledge of the differences of opinion between them, such a pair is likely to cause problems. The challenge is also the more evident in cases where one spouse decide to change his or her lifestyle and strengthen his or her adherence to Judaism by becoming religious or more careful with the observance of certain commandments. His or her partner who does not keep up with this pace is made to feel displeasure with the newly religious partner's decision to move ahead, feeling as though he or she was left behind without the strength to follow this particular path. In such a situation, it is clear who should give in. For the non-religious individual, the concessions involved would, at most, imply a certain inconvenience. However, for the religious person, concessions would mean the breach of religious feelings and beliefs arising from the innermost soul and would affect the person's conscience. When the non-religious spouse understands that this is not an attempt to gain control, rather an honest desire to share a newfound truth on the part of the newly religious spouse, there is also almost no question that this non-religious spouse will change his or her attitude. This is particularly the case when the other spouse performs the commandments with joy, with a pleasant manner, with a positive, respectful attitude. Experience shows that the majority of people who strengthen their observance of Judaism, even if they did not do so spontaneously, are grateful afterwards to those who brought them closer. Together with the absolute necessity of upholding the Jewish lifestyle is the necessity for the husband and wife to convey such observance in a pleasant way to his or her spouse. This is accomplished by taking the other feelings into account so as not to give the impression that the lifestyle changes come with desire to be boss or gain control. It is also advisable to allow friends to help explain and clarify those matters that need clarification. This is the case since often an outsider's words are more readily accepted than those spoken by one of the couples. Hasidic teachings explain that the concept of tshuva, returning to God, does not only apply to non-religious people. Tshuva relates to every Jewish person on every spiritual level. In fact, one of the reasons why a bride and groom fast on their wedding day is this concept of returning. The wedding day is a new beginning or rebirth, and it is essential to preparation for this day. One possible reason for a lack of domestic harmony may be insufficient effort towards repentance before the wedding. As previously mentioned, a Jew can always make tshuva, thus correcting and retroactively completing what was lacking. At any time and in any situation, positive conduct influenced by the fear of heaven will impact a spouse to act accordingly and improve domestic harmony for the good. The soul descends into this world in order to be elevated, to perfect, and to sanctify the portion of every single person in the world. Even though the soul itself does not need rectification, it too is elevated by the Jew's observance of Torah and the commandments, which is his mission on earth. Almost all the souls in our generation has already been in the world, returning only in order to repair and complete what they previously missed. How does a person know what he specifically needs to correct? When a particular commandment appears to be more difficult to observe, despite the fact that the individual keeps the rest of the commandments relative ease, this is a sign that the difficult commandment is related to this person's specific rectification. When a man or woman finds they are able to live harmoniously with the whole world and not just with their spouse, they do not get along, it can be assumed that the special task in life is to build domestic peace. Everything else was corrected in early incarnations, and only this deficiency still needs to be completed. Understandably, the resistance of the evil inclination to this particular task will be incredibly strong. However, this knowledge of the negative impulse methods assists a person to stand firmly against it, enables him to ignore its enticements. All right, so we actually talked a lot about domestic peace, and that's very important because I know that, or everybody knows, that the domestic peace is a golden commodity because there's a high level of divorce today, and people get burned, and it's sorrowful. It's really a tragic situation. Of course, as a rabbi, I have to counsel many people and deal with these situations, but there is divorce in Jewish law, but ultimately that is the last extent that a person has to go through, and mainly a person should try as hard as they can for peace, and should we have peace between a husband and wife and peace throughout the world. Thank you very much.